A lot of tech skills can now also be advanced using AI, but this is where human credibilities becomes of prime importance.
Hello, and welcome to Her Voice, a podcast from The Choice, a media powered by ESCP Business School and dedicated to decision makers. My name is Sarah Royal.
And I'm Emily Oliarchuk.
And we're from The Choice's editorial team.
The Her Voice is powered by one really important mission: to give the mic to women experts who are shaking things up for the better across their sectors and areas of expertise. For season 3 of Her Voice, we're really excited to bring 5 guests who are leading the way on a variety of topics in the field of STEM: science, technology, engineering, and math.
On Her Voice, we're speaking to Farah Pankhania, who is a business intelligence engineer at Amazon and a graduate from ESCP Business School's Master's in Big Data and Data Analytics. Originally from India, she currently works in Luxembourg at the crossroads of data, technology, and business.
Farah is a passionate technologist who has worked across industries as a software engineer and data scientist. She specializes in analyzing complex data sets, building predictive models, and translating these machine learning insights into actionable and concrete elements for decision making.
Today, we're asking Farah to share her expertise and experience on how to turn blind spots into breakthrough using AI and all of the other tools at our fingertips. So Farah, thank you for joining us on Her Voice.
Thank you for having me.
Great. So if I remember correctly, you are calling in with us today from Luxembourg, where you have been living for the last a little over 2 years after having spent time in Paris with ESCP during your MBA. I'm just curious, you're originally from India, you've been living and building this life in Europe. What would your younger self think, looking at where your life is now? Did you expect it to take the journey that it did?
I think while growing up, I always was excited by the idea of living in a new environment, experiencing new cultures, meeting new people, and just being exposed to new ideas and experiences. I was very focused on studying, and in my head that was kind of like a path that I thought that I could achieve what I was envisioning for myself. Moving to Paris was kind of, for the master's, was a first step in that direction. But moving to Luxembourg was not really planned. It also then kind of adds to another layer to the story of mine that, everything doesn't go as planned. I feel happy that I stayed consistent towards working for something that I wanted to achieve, and I wanted to live a certain way. And that's how, it's all a cumulative aspect of how the journey goes forward, a mix of both some conscious efforts and some unplanned turn of events in that makes you come to the point where you are. Just moving and living abroad also has kind of made me more adaptable, and you then realize that you are much more capable than what you thought.
Yes, as we did not intend this, but Sarah and I can definitely resonate with what you're saying. Both of us came over to Europe, came to France as students and stuck around afterwards. So I feel like as much as you project and you envision this life, sometimes the kind of snowball just builds and you find yourself here.
Absolutely.
8 years later and you're like, oh, this is where I am now.
Yeah.
So before you did your master's program at ESCP, you did your bachelor's in engineering, if I'm correct. What kind of made you decide to study engineering? Why was that a path that you were pursuing?
So I started programming since I was in 8th grade.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was not intentional. Like I didn't plan it. We had a subject in school, and it was something that I was excited about, and I liked solving problems with code and learning how to different languages on how to solution things, building the logic behind it. So when also my father has been working in tech industry since long, so I was exposed to that world, and it felt familiar. So when I had to decide to take up what should I take up as my undergraduate studies, it really came as I didn't face a lot of dilemma. I thought, I want to take something engineering and focused in computer science. I do enjoy the analytical side of things. I also enjoyed studying math and solving problems. It also felt like, this is something I can do and achieve a path or career in. So I took it up yeah.
So, I mean, it seems like data and problem solving and all of that was something that we really felt called to. But, this is her voice. And I think that a lot of us know that despite progress, it's still a place that women are maybe less represented. Did that factor in at all when you were kind of going in? Or was that something that you thought about? Like, or were you just like, I'm pulled to this, this is what I want to do, and then we'll deal with whatever comes my way?
It was just something I was pulled towards. And the fact that there are fewer women didn't really, I never really thought about it as much or paid a lot of attention to it. I just thought I could go with the flow. And right now we have progressed a lot. So there has been a significant change and an increase in the number of women now involved in this industry. So I'm glad that I did not hesitate as much back when I was starting out. And just because I was motivated enough, I could push forward to do it. Yeah.
So you started off in engineering, in computer programming, et cetera, but obviously you felt a need, right, to pursue education further, and you joined ESCP to do our master's in big data and business analytics. We kind of wanted to unpack that a little bit with you and understand, what inspired that choice? What were you looking to achieve in adding this specialized master's onto your experience?
So I agree that when so after I finished my bachelor's, I did work as a software and a solutions engineer for a few years, and I also switched across multiple roles in different organizations. I was very open to learning, exploring different sides of tech. So I did back end or front end, quality assurance as well, and then I started doing stuff which was more close towards data and integration. That was one field where I thought I could go more deeper into and specialize. And then I did want to get a master's degree after my undergrad. That was also another thought I did have for myself. I decided that if I do take up a specialized field, it has to be more focused in data science and analytics. Also, when you know that you want to go back to studying after a few years of working, you want to make a very conscious choice, and you should know exactly what you want and what you want to gain from it. For example, since I already had a tech degree, I wanted to study business and analytics from a business school, which is why I saw ESCP, and it was pretty well ranked. I did not have the business understanding, so I thought this could be a really good fit. I can learn something which I haven't learned before. Also, it had this opportunity to study across countries, and then the cohort is very diverse. So I looked at aspects which were both professional and personally fulfilling for me, and an overall aspect of it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's what we hear from many participants who are coming back to their education after working is looking for that, well-rounded experience that is going to add the skills you need, but also is going to give you that opportunity for personal growth. So that makes a lot of sense. I just wanted to maybe dig into one thing that you mentioned is the importance of kind of taking time to reflect and really ask yourself what you're working towards. How did you do that? Did you sort of sit down with yourself and write a list? Did you talk to people at your company or in your field? I'm just curious, especially in thinking of how you can maybe inspire folks who are at a similar time in their careers. How did you go about kind of figuring out what you wanted to do?
I spoke to a few alumni who did a similar course at ESCP and also at other schools. Also seeing what their path looked like, talking to some of my managers at that time who were really supportive of my growth and my career. They also knew that I wanted to go deeper into this field, so also taking advice from them. For example, then since they knew about that I wanted to pursue a deeper study into this field, I also got projects assigned so that I can build up my portfolio and apply for applications, or even assess and do a real world application to see if I'm actually enjoying doing this. So that was one of my last projects. I specifically asked to work on building beta product analytics, for example, for the launch of a new product. I didn't sit down and think, but I think subconsciously I was making those efforts to try and get towards that goal.
Yeah, I really think that's a good lesson about how you can use, where you're at now. I mean, I'm the type of person who's always thinking about the future, like the next thing. And it's a good reminder that you can use where you're at now to be building and to be testing and figuring out what you like and what you're good at. So thanks for sharing that. Yeah. So no, we're going to flash back, like fast forward to you've come through ESCP, you've completed your studies, and now you find yourself with this opportunity to join Amazon as a business intelligence engineer. I'm not really a tech person, and Sarah and I are discovering in this third season of Her Voice that we have a lot of questions that are very basic. Like, what does a business intelligence engineer do exactly? What does your day-to-day look like?
That's yeah. It's a mix. It's a mix of a lot of things. Even I didn't know that this profile would have. It could include so many aspects, but I am happy that it's a role that's quite open. So to just say it's like a mix of both business and tech at the intersection of data. So I work on a day-to-day, I work closely with a lot of customer teams. It could be finance, operations, or engineering teams. And I try to gather their business requirements, metrics, or data points based on which they make certain business decisions. That's like the key driver what decisions are they trying to make? And then I go and find out where that data lies. You may think that in big organizations, all data is very clean and structured, but it's usually not the case. It's quite scattered across different systems. And a large part of my job is also handling such large amount of data and trying to consolidate or remove inconsistencies. Once I have access to that data, I build frameworks around it to extract insights. And now with AI, I build a lot of AI-based solutions, which analyzes that data and then gives insights into those metrics and data points that the business needed. And then once they have those insights, they can make those decisions more accurately, improve their efficiency, or see the impact in terms of like costs or time saved and so on. And a large part of it is also communication, because I can interact with the business directly and also do the back end and see where the information is flowing from, for example.
It's so interesting, I think, sometimes to hear kind of these job titles. And we have a couple of people this season like that. And I think when you're kind of, growing up, that's not necessarily like a job that you're gonna be like, I can't wait to be that when I grow up. But there are so many opportunities to combine so many different skills. And it sounds like this is a place that really kind of combines everything that you like, that you were working on, the skills that you learned in your bachelor's and in your master's, and also kind of interpersonal things that you might learn from being abroad. Like, I think it's so interesting to see just what exists, like what types of roles exist and the kinds of people that you need to fill those, because that's not something that everyone could do for sure. So you mentioned, right, just now about AI kind of switching things up, both in terms of the work, like how you do your job and what you're doing for your clients and customers. And you're working at this intersection of data, AI, business insights. Maybe from your perspective, how would you describe the AI revolution that's happening inside companies today?
Yeah, it's massive, of course. I think all organizations are now just trying to catch up and make themselves ready to propagate the use of AI even at the user level. And we have seen like the progress from normal text generation to now AI agents where they can actually execute workflows on your behalf. This revolution it's like another one of those that we have had in the past, but then the speed at which this is progressing, it's really, really fast. Like every day we hear about something new that has launched, and it's even better than the previous version of that large language model, for example. So it's the biggest, like the use cases that I have seen, which are actually also being implemented at the most lowest level, is the speed and automation with which we do our daily tasks and get results, and we can immediately move towards decision making. So a task which was taking days before can now be executed pretty fast and quickly with AI.
Are you able to share like a specific example of whether it's work you did on with like a business unit and how you built an AI model based on data you saw, or maybe even on your personal side, how you find the right articulation in AI use versus, your personal contribution? Just kind of want to get like an example of kind of how you are implementing AI.
So a couple of examples. One of the main ones I did was trying to find out or looking into data which is not really looked at, and it's constantly being entered. For example, on a system, it has a lot of text information, but it's never analyzed. So it just sits there, and you find that opportunity that could be looked into, and once analyzed, that data could give good insights. So it was one of the use cases I had for a customer. With the system they were using, they were entering a lot of information. For example, the kind of risks that they're observing and putting them down into the system, and just flagging it what kind of, if there was an action taken or not. But what I did was I just analyzed and applied a machine learning model as a predictive model to categorize those textual or summaries which were entered into classifying it into high, medium, or low risk. So you can then quantify based on just a text summary if this was a high risk that was entered, or a low risk, or a medium level risk, and that could allow the users to then when they have a new summary entered, it can give an indication that such type of risk was flagged as high in the past, and this should really be actioned upon. So such an example of a use case where data was never really investigated, but then once you leverage and see what insights you're bringing it out, it just adds that simplicity on the user to the final call is still on the user to put it into the category they want, but it at least helps and adds on to also gives some historical patterns. That's really helpful. So that's one example.
And that leads to really well kind of in the second question that we wanted to ask you around this, which is to talk a little bit more about those blind spots, whether they be blind spots for opportunity or blind spots for potential risks. We're just curious, again, from being on the ground floor implementing these things, what do you see as, the blind spots that leaders need to be paying attention to when it comes to AI?
That's good to see it in terms of like two aspects, like blind spots in terms of opportunities as well as risks. In terms of opportunities, we see it in like I mentioned, in terms of daily workflows or repetitive tasks which you do daily. And for example, reading a lot of documents manually, but then rather just leveraging AI to read and then create some sort of prompt to pull insights from a large set of documents, or tapping into undiscovered data, and then also mapping it to seeing what kind of results you could get, and starting small as a proof of concept, and then scaling eventually. So once you have quantified and seen that you do get good results and it can be scalable, you're saving significant number of hours or costs, only then you scale. So we usually try to go behind very large projects and which have a lot of visibility, and they start at a very top level. But then if we start from the bottom, from the tasks that we do daily and which lie really in front of us, that's where we can also find good value. And in terms of risks or blind spots that we often overlook is like assuming everything that AI gives is correct, because it's at the end, it's a human input in some way. So adding those sort of validations and data governance on the output is important, and is often overlooked, that we see that the results are coming in, but then if we don't look at and put flags at the input level as well as the output, it can be a miss or a blind spot that could be hidden. And yeah, adding also being aware of all the biases that it could show you in the output. So yeah, data governance and then is really important. It's also highly encouraged in my team, and it's something that we in our organization we really are pushing towards, to not completely trust on all the output that we get, add good validations around it, and build up rules or systems, and also have some temporary checks to go back and give some feedback and put it in an iterative loop, so that yeah, we constantly also update the kind of information we are getting. Because if there's a major risk that occurs, it may be something that we never anticipated, and it was because we were constantly feeding in but not really validating the output.
I think it ties into to my next question, which is really, what skills do you think are absolutely critical for people who are going to be future leaders in this kind of intersection of AI, data, business? It seems like one is being aware of the risks, but what else? What else do we need to think about?
Yeah, I think it now should be a good mix of both tech and human skills. Because a lot of tech skills can now also be advanced using AI, but this is where human credibility becomes of prime importance. So yeah, being aware of all the risks, biases associated, and having good judgment, and also knowing what right questions to ask and where you can see that these results could be wrong or where you need validation. So that critical thinking would be very important skill to have, and it could really help in decision making process amongst leaders and everyone who would be working in this space. And lastly, also one thing that we see is that just finding insights from data and analyzing data is not enough unless you have a good story to tell and to present those findings. That's when it becomes of real value. If you're able to communicate in a good story and sell it, and that can actually then propagate some decision making, it's really important. So having that communication skill and being able to influence. So yeah, a lot of good other soft skills will also play a very important role, along with constantly also then learning and evolving with new technologies, and then keeping yourself up to date with everything that's happening around and being constantly involved.
So after all, this is her voice, and we do like to ask some questions, about your experiences, particularly being a woman and in a field like tech. So I think, you had kind of mentioned to us that you've been in situations before being kind of the only woman in the environments. What has been that most difficult part of that kind of experience, and how did that make you feel, being the only woman in the room?
I have been in such teams, or where I have been the only woman in a group of tech team. It can feel a bit intimidating, and you also there's a presumption that on your technical skills maybe you're not that competent, or you usually also need to do a lot of extra things to prove yourself. It is intimidating just overall. But I have tried to see it in a way that you can also be that person who can influence. And since you're the only person in the room, you can bring a lot of perspective and diverse opinion as compared to others who may have kind of the same idea, for example. So it can be looked at as, a place where you can be a driver of change, and I have gotten a lot of support from my leadership at that time, to be vocal and to also voice out my ideas more. And sometimes I was also given that stage to speak out more and get visibility. So it can, if we try to see it positively, it can be a very good thing, because then you are at the forefront of driving change.
I love having that positive perspective on something that can definitely be overwhelming, I think.
Actually, that our second question in this scope was to ask you, kind of how do you find your voice in those moments? But would I be correct in summarizing that when you take a step back and you don't look at the situation as an individual, just yourself trying to be present, but you view it more holistically as like you have a role and a responsibility to bring a unique perspective and a diverse perspective? Is that, does that help you find your voice in kind of stepping out of yourself and seeing your responsibility in a bigger way?
No, totally. It gives a very good platform to voice out your opinions and being very assertive as well. For example, saying no to things that you don't agree with is a really strong way to have your voice heard, for example. And then speaking with trying to speak first and continue voicing out step by step, and then you can build up that confidence. So having that trust on yourself that you know that you're right in saying this thing, and if you voice it out, you may get some positive alliances, and you make sure your voice is heard. There are a few things that you can do is talking very slowly, or not very slowly, but taking time to respond. So you take a pause, and then you can assert yourself more. Or if you have to give instead of giving a very long explanation, if you can summarize and very concisely communicate what you think, then you know that you have understood the context and you're really confident in putting it out there. So yeah, those two, I think, skills are pretty handy to really assert your voice and navigate such an environment.
I want to come just to what you mentioned about your support system, because you talked about it's, of course, there's a lot you can do on your own, of course, but you can go so much further if you have that support system. And I guess our question was more around being someone that looks at big data and finds the patterns and finds the system thinking. We were curious if there was ever a moment where you realized indeed that yes, there's things you can do on your level, but it's part of a more systemic issue. Has that kind of thinking ever come into play in the way you view diversity in tech, and sort of what type of resources and support are needed to improve it?
There have been times where, as I mentioned, that you may need to voice out more and make yourself more visible and credible, and you have to make these conscious efforts to have your thoughts and ideas heard. But yeah, as you mentioned about the support system, it's really good and important, like trying to find people who will vouch for you and who will support you, and not only support you and your growth, but also finding sponsors who would actually allow you to be in those opportunities. And that's something, one of the leaders that is in our organization, she did mention this, that finding a sponsor for yourself is really important. And she was like, if she would not have found a sponsor for herself a few years ago, she would not have been in this position now. So there are a lot of people in your network who, as you also mentioned, play a very important role. And finding those allies and mentors who can vouch for you and really play a very instrumental role in your career growth is quite important. And they actually then just amplify your visibility and your credibility in your organization or amongst the other people around you. So yeah, people who can actually vouch for you and sponsor for you.
Yeah, because I know that you've been a part of some initiatives, I think, at work that are centered around women in tech. And does that tie into that? Do you find that that's what you get from those initiatives? Or, is that something that you recommend for people to kind of search those out or maybe create their own if they don't have them already?
I'm glad to have such initiatives around me where I can go and I can indulge myself and see what's out there and what best I can pick out from those initiatives. And yeah, for example, those groups allow me to access to some tech conferences where I can meet and meet other people, be exposed to new ideas, what's happening around me, and have that visibility. And then if if there are no such initiatives around you, it's always good to start one, as you mentioned. We also start very small with like lunch and learn sessions or like discussion groups. Mentoring circles. There are also some mentoring circles which are run internally. And they all like contribute towards having a very fair and unbiased environment. And that, is the driver of change over the years, a couple of years, because now we have more women as compared to before. So it's a progress, and it's going in a positive direction overall.
Thank you so much already for sharing these experiences. To conclude, we have a few wrap-up questions that we like to ask every guest. And the first one is, looking back at all the things that you've shared with us today and your career so far, what would you say has surprised you the most about your professional journey?
What surprises me the most, I think I would say, is that I did a lot of things. I worked across different roles and different tasks, responsibilities, lived across different countries. And I never thought that I would do so much. I just feel I am glad that I stayed consistent into doing what I like to do. And just allowing myself to be open to trying new things. And I also see now that each thing or each step that I would have taken has now led to the next one. So it's good to see that sort of transition. And also getting opportunities that I didn't plan on. I think, most important, I would say, is just being consistent and showing up for yourself every day, no matter what, even in like small ways, because you need to be, as you also mentioned before, really believe in what you want to do and be your authentic self. So,
The other question we like to ask is, what advice would you give to other people who are looking to find their voices?
I would say, being your authentic self, and to add to my previous point, and doing like, one thing that makes you happy every day, and staying consistent, and not comparing yourself to others, but just focusing more on yourself and what is it that truly is maybe you're passionate about or you're inspired about. And then if you just actively work towards it, you would find your voice and eventually get what you always wanted, or and also allow yourself to be open and try new experiences and things.
Yeah, I appreciate the additional elements you provided, because I did want to push back a little bit and say, how do you be your most authentic self? I mean, do you mind giving an example for you, what that feels like when you say like, okay, in this moment, I am being authentic to me, or in this activity, this is something that makes me happy. Like, what's something for you that kind of fills that cup?
So for example, I like to have a good morning routine where I play some music or I get a coffee, and even though if I have a lot of tasks pending at work, for example, and I need to have some sort of a thing in my day which I really enjoy doing the most, and I know I feel the most like myself. And that just gives me the added energy to then do other things, for example. Or if you don't do something even as small as like my morning routine or just getting a coffee, then it's showing that you show up for yourself every day. And that's what your most authentic self looks like.
Thank you so much for taking it a bit further, because that definitely, it's like showing up for your authentic self is not like some big old project. It's really all those micro moments where you either stand up for yourself or you allow yourself to feel that moment of joy rather than just kind of going along with the grind.
There's a lot of power in the small things. I think that's always a good reminder. Were there any questions or anything that we didn't ask you that you wanted to talk about or you think might be interesting to our listeners?
If I can just conclude, being just allowing yourself to be outside your comfort zone, and because if you don't try that, you would never know what you were capable of, for example. So not be hesitant, and just going and stepping outside to exploring new things and being open, which I also mentioned before, but I think that could be a good concluding point.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us today. I mean, it was such a pleasure to learn more about your career and your experiences. And I think that we all have a lot to learn. And these conversations are really helpful too. Like you said, to kind of, I think out loud sometimes and see how we are getting through everything. But it's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much, Farah.
Yeah, thank you so much as well. It's been a pleasure for me. And it was great to speak to you both.
Thank you so much for listening to Her Voice, the podcast from The Choice, the media by ESCP Business School. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please don't hesitate to hit 5 stars on your favorite podcast platform or hit subscribe if you're listening to us on YouTube or somewhere else like that. If you'd like to keep the conversation going, please head over to The Choice on escp.eu, where we have a wide variety of articles with experts from the ESCP community around the topics we covered today, like soft skills, future careers, AI, big data, etc.
And thanks so much to the team who worked with us on this. Pauline, Mathieu, You Love Words, in the recording studio, Laria Boutique. We're looking forward to our next conversation, so stay tuned.